Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm Kerry. Today I'll be showing you how to make this shopping bag made out of granny squares. The size with the strap is 46 centimetres wide by 61 centimetres or 18 inches wide by 24 inches. I'll be making my granny squares all the same colours with blue flowers and white edges, which will make it easier for you to see. But I'll have the amount of squares I made in each colour for this bag on my website. I'll also show a picture of them set out to join together. I use 5 different colours for the flowers for this bag. You will need to use cotton for the bag. If you used acrylic, it would stretch. I've used 50-gram balls of crochet cotton in 4-ply, which is the same as fingering yarn. I used 1 ball of each of the yellow and the blue, 2 balls of the green and 4 balls of the white. I've got a 2mm crochet hook, scissors and a darning needle to weave in the ends and stitch it together. Now we're going to start in the centre of the circle. There's 2 rows. I normally would work quite a number of centres, weave in the ends and then work the next row. I'll only be working 1 granny square on camera. Now we can start with a magic loop. I'll be starting with a magic loop, or you could work 4 chain and join with a slip stitch instead. Now for a magic loop, there's lots of ways to make them, so make it how you feel most comfortable. I just put my hook on the yarn, bring the short end over the hook and then the long end over the short end to make a circle, then yarn around the hook and bring my hook with the yarn at the end through the circle, and that's my magic loop. We start with 1 chain and we work 8 single crochet into our circle. A single crochet is a double crochet using UK terms. For a single crochet, we put our hook through the circle and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through both loops. We need 7 more single crochet into our circle. Now that's the 8 single crochet. Now if you've started with a magic loop, you pull the circle tight. So you take hold of the tail and just ease it in as tight as you can. And then we join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch. So not the top of the chain, the top of that first stitch there. We put our hook into the stitch, bring through a loop and take it straight through the loop on the hook. And that's row 1 done. For row 2 we've got these spokes. Now we start with 7 chain. That's for our first treble and 3 chain. So we'll start with 7 chain. Then we work 1 treble into the next stitch. A treble is a double treble using UK terms. For a treble we put the yarn around the hook twice, hook into the stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook, take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, and yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. Then we work 3 chain. And we work 1 treble into the next stitch. And then work 3 chain. And we'll be repeating that right around our circle. We're going to have 8 spokes. So 1 treble into the next stitch, and 3 chain, a treble into the next stitch, and 3 chain, and just repeat like that. 1 treble into the next stitch and 3 chain, Now I've worked into the last stitch. I just make sure that I've got 8 spokes and the 7 chain is counted as 1. So I've got 8 spokes. I join with a slip stitch in the 4th chain. So just up in here and fasten off. And that's the centre worked. My circle will measure about 3 centimetres across, or 1¼ inches. Now I'll weave in those ends and I'll be back with my blue and we'll work this next section. Now for row 3 I'm going to join in my blue just in any of these 3 chain loops. So I just put a loop on my hook and bring it through, and I like to bring that to the other side while I work the chain. We start with 4 chain, and we're going to work a 3 treble cluster into the same stitch as our join. I'll be working over the top of this tail just to secure it a bit more. So we put the yarn around the hook twice, hook into the loop and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook, take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. Then yarn around the hook twice, hook into this loop and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. We've got 3 loops on the hook. We put the yarn around the hook twice, hook in through this loop and bring up a loop of cotton, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. There's 4 loops on the hook. We put the yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops. Then we work 5 chain. And we're going to work a 4 treble cluster into each of these loops with 5 chain between. For the first cluster, the 4 chain counts as one of the parts of the clusters. So we put the yarn around the hook twice, hook into the next loop and bring up a loop of cotton, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. Then yarn around the hook twice, hook in through the loop again and bring up a loop of cotton, yarn around the hook, take a hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. We've now got 3 loops on the hook. We put the yarn around the hook twice, hook through the loop and bring up a loop of cotton, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. There's 4 loops on the hook and we've got one more to do. Yarn around the hook twice, hook in through the loop and bring up a loop of cotton, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops. There's 5 loops on the hook. We put the yarn around the hook and take our hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops. Then we work 5 chain. And we work a 4 treble cluster into the next loop. And then work 5 chain. We work a 4 treble cluster into the next loop. And work 5 chain. And we repeat that 4 more times. A 4 treble cluster in the next loop. And 5 chain. And just repeat 3 more times. And work the 5 chain at the end. And join with a slip stitch in the top of the cluster. And fasten off. And that's row 3 done. The circle is now about 5.5 centimetres across or 2 inches across. Now I'll weave in those ends and I'll be back with the green and we'll work this next row. Now for row 4, the green row, we'll be working 2 clusters, 4 treble clusters in each of our loops with 4 chain between them. So we can join in any of our loops, just the same as we did last time. Bring a loop through, and I like to just hook that over to secure it a bit more and work my chain. We work a 3 treble cluster into that same place. and then we work 4 chain, and then work a 4 treble cluster into that same loop. And work 4 chain, then work a 4 treble cluster into the next loop, and work 4 chain, and then work another 4 treble cluster into that same loop. And work 4 chain, and work a 4 treble cluster into the next loop, work 4 chain, and another 4 treble cluster into that same loop. And we keep working like that right around the circle. We have 4 chain and then 2 4 treble clusters in the next one with 4 chain in between. So 4 chain in between each cluster, but 2 clusters in each of these loops. So I'll work the last 2 clusters in this last loop and I'll be back. After I've done the last 2 clusters in the last loop, I work 4 chain. I just check that I've got 16 clusters, and then I join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch and fasten off. And that's the first 4 rows. My circle would be about 8.5 centimetres by across, which is 3.25 inches. Now I'll weave in these ends, and I'll be back with my white and we'll work these last 2 rows. For row 5, this row here, we join our main colour in between 2 clusters worked in to the 5 chain loop below. So this one here, not between the cluster there, but in here. Just join the same as you have been joining and work 4 chain. That counts as the first treble. And then work 2 treble in that same loop. And work 2 chain. Now we're going to work a corner. So we've got 3 double treble, 3 chain and 3 double treble into our corner stitches. A double treble is a triple treble using UK terms. For a double treble we put the yarn around the hook 3 times, hook into the loop and bring up a loop of cotton, yarn around the hook, take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook through another 2 loops and yarn around the hook, and take your hook with the yarn at the end through the remaining 2 loops. So we need 2 more double treble into that same loop. Then we work 3 chain and 3 more double treble into that same loop. And that's the corner done. Then work 2 chain and work 3 treble into the next loop. Work 2 chain and 3 treble into the following loop. Two chain and 3 treble into the next loop. And work 2 chain. Now that's the side done. We've got 3 lots of treble, of 3 treble in each loop with 2 chain between. Now we're going to work our next corner. We work 3 double treble into the next loop, work 3 chain and 3 double treble into that same loop. Then work 2 chain and work 3 treble into our next loop. Two chain and 3 treble into the following loop. Two chain and 3 treble into the next loop. Then work 2 chain and we'll work our next corner. We work 3 double treble into the next loop, three chain, and then 3 double treble into that same loop. Work 2 chain and work 3 treble into our next loop, two chain, 3 treble into the following loop, two chain, and 3 treble into the next loop. Then work 2 chain and we'll work our next corner. We work 3 double treble into the next loop, three chain, and 3 double treble into that same loop. Work 2 chain and work 3 treble into the next loop, two chain, and 3 treble into the last loop. Work 2 chain and slip stitch in the 4th chain, and that's row 5 done. For row 6 we start with 1 chain, we work 1 single crochet in the same stitch as the join, and then 1 single crochet in the top of each of the next 2 treble, and you could work a single crochet in each of the 2 chain, or you could just work 2 single crochet into that loop, and then 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. And you could work 1 single crochet in each of the 3 chain, or you could just work 3 single crochet into the loop. And we just continue like that, 1 single crochet in each stitch, either in each chain or into the loop. So I'll continue around this row off camera, and I'll be back when I get near the end of the row. Now I've worked my 2 single crochet into that last loop, Now we join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch and fasten off. Now the size of my square will be 11 centimetres square or 4 1/4 inches square. Now I'll need 31 squares for my bag. Now I'll make the rest of my squares. I'll weave in the ends, and I also like to give them a bit of a press to push them into shape. I just use a bit of fabric over the top of them when I'm pressing them. Being cotton, they don't shrivel up. So I'll do that, and I'll be back and we'll arrange them to be put together. I've pressed my squares into shape, and I've laid them out in rows of 2 and 3 squares across, starting and ending with 2 squares, as in the picture there. You'll have 4 squares left over for the sides. So you join the squares together. I sewed mine together using whip stitch, but you could crochet them together if you'd prefer. I've joined all my squares together and given them a press. Now we're going to join the squares in the sides. Now I put my bag in half. So I've got the 2 ends together, and I've got across the bottom. Now we're going to join 2 squares in each side. So we fold them in half and just stitch them in there, 2 on each side, and that will square up our sides. So I'll stitch those in, and I'll be back and we'll work the straps. There's the bag joined together. The size without the straps is 46 centimetres square or 18 inches square. Now this is the top of our bag. We've got the 2 points for the top. Now we're going to work straps starting from here. We'll work chain for our first strap, then we'll work down and then back up this other side and then work another strap. So we join our main colour just at the point of our first top, just in there, and then we're going to work enough chain for a strap between this point and this point here. Now I've found 120 chain works well for me. You don't work them too tight because we're going to work into both the front of the chain and the back loop for the other side of the strap. So just work your chain somewhere about 120, but just check once you're finished to see if it's right for your strap. So I'll work my 120 chain off camera and I'll be back. Once you've finished your chain, just check to make sure you're happy with the length, and then we join in the next corner with a single crochet. And I'll just bring it closer to my work, and then we just work 1 single crochet in each stitch down the side until we have 3 stitches left before the join. I'll just work until I've got 3 stitches left before the join off camera, so I'll be working over 2 squares. Now I'm down to 3 stitches before the join. I'll work a joined single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochet, 1 half double crochet and single crochet over the next 6 stitches. So I put my hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, then yarn around the hook and hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, and then yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, then yarn around the hook, hook into the first stitch on the other side and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, and then hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, and then yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops. Then we work 1 single crochet into the next stitch. Now I'll work 1 single crochet in each stitch to the point for the strap, which is at the top of the bag. I'll work the 120 chain for the strap. I'll do that off camera and I'll be back. Once you've worked your chain, join to the next point, and I like to just check to make sure my chain are about the same length, and they are. Now we work 1 single crochet in each stitch to 3 stitches before this next join. So I'll work my single crochet off camera. Now I'm down to 3 stitches before the join. I'll work a joined single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochet, 1 half double crochet and single crochet over the next 6 stitches. So I put my hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, then yarn around the hook and hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, and then yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, then yarn around the hook, hook into the first stitch on the other side and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, and then hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, and then yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops. Then we work 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch up to the other side to the join. So I'll work my single crochets up this side and I'll be back just before I get to the chain there. I've just worked into the last stitch before the chain. I slip stitch into the join, and that's row 1 done. For row 2 we start with 1 chain and we're going to work 1 single crochet in each chain for the first strap, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch down this first side until 3 stitches before that middle stitch there. So 1 single crochet in each stitch of the chain and 1 single crochet in each stitch until the last 3 stitches before the corner there. So I'll work those off camera. Now I'm 3 stitches before the side join. I'm going to work a joined single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochet, 1 half double crochet and single crochet over the next 6 stitches. So I put my hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook, hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, then yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, and then hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, and then yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops, and then work 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then we work 1 single crochet in each stitch up the side and 1 single crochet in each of the chain. So I'll work 1 single crochet in each stitch up the side and then 1 single crochet in each of my chain, and I'll be back. Now I've worked up the side in each chain along the strap. Now I have to work 1 single crochet in each stitch down this side until I have 3 stitches left before the center join. So I'll work until 3 stitches before the join off camera. Now I'm 3 stitches before the join. I work a join, single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochet, a half double crochet and single crochet over the next 6 stitches. So I put my hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook, hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, yarn around the hook, take my hook with the yarn at the end through 2 loops, yarn around the hook, hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, and then hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, and yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops. Then we work 1 single crochet in each stitch up to the strap. So I'll work that off camera. I'm back to the strap. I slip stitch in the first stitch of the strap. Now rows 3 and 4 are worked the same. We start with 1 chain and we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch except the 6 stitches in the center of these 2 joins, and we'll work the joined single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochet, half double crochet and single crochet over those middle stitches in the 2 joins. But other than that, we'll work 1 single crochet in each stitch right around. So I'll work these 2 rows off camera and I'll be back. Now that's the end of row 4 done. I just slip stitch into the top of the first stitch and fasten off. Now we do work on the inside of the straps, so they both work the same. I'll work on this one because there's no ends left unneatened. I just join somewhere probably about halfway between the strap and the join there. That will just make it easier because I'm going to do some join stitches across these 3 stitches. We're going to work 3 rows for the strap. We start with 1 chain and work 1 single crochet in the same stitch as the join, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch just up to the stitch before the strap. Onto the stitch before the strap, we're going to work a joined single crochet over the next 3 stitches. So we put our hook into the next stitch and bring up a loop, hook into the following stitch and bring up a loop, and then hook into the back of the chain of the next stitch and bring up a loop. Then yarn around the hook and take the hook with the yarn at the end through all the loops. And then we work 1 single crochet in the back of the chain of each stitch along the strap to the last stitch. So just 1 single crochet in the back of the chain along the strap until we have 1 stitch left. So I'll work to there off camera. To the second last stitch of the strap, we work a joined single crochet over the next 3 stitches. And then we work 1 single crochet in each stitch down to the stitch before the center stitch in this join. We work a joined single crochet over the 3 center stitches of that join there, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch to the beginning of the row. And we join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch. Now the next 2 rows work the same. We start with 1 chain, we work 1 single crochet in the same stitch as the join, and then we'll be working 1 single crochet in each stitch on the edges except a joined single crochet over the 3 stitches at the beginning and end of the strap, and a joined single crochet over the 3 stitches at that center join there. So I'll work these 2 rows off camera and then I'll be back. Now I'm back to the beginning of the row. That's the 3 rows worked. So I join with a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch and fasten off. And the other inside strap is worked the same. I just join in there somewhere and work it the same as the other inside strap. Just 1 chain and work 1 single crochet in each stitch except for the joined single crochets over 3 stitches at the start and end of the strap and this join here, and I'll need 3 rows. So I'll work this one off camera, I'll weave in the ends, and I'll be back to show you the finished shopping bag. Now there's the finished shopping bag. If you've liked my video, please like, subscribe and share. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest and Patreon. The details are in the description below, along with the details of my website where I have my patterns and the details of my Facebook group. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.